Hi and welcome to sim.bc. This video is not so much of a visual video as it is more of a podcasty type of video. With that being said though, you can have this one on in the background when you're either gaming, cleaning or taking a picture of your dog for the 100th time today, without missing out on any of the value I will give you. This is going to be a bit of a one-off video, diverging from the original format. Given the title, I am sure that you already know, but if you don't, I'm going to just give you some initial feedback on the whole Disney-Fox negotiation idea. To give it a bit of background and context, this deal is all in theory crafting at this point in time, and all the information that I've been able to gather is hearsay, so nothing concrete, okay? So just keep that in mind as we're going forward. Now, there are many channels out there like Comics Explained and Comicstorian who have done a way better analysis of the comic book side of this deal than I probably ever could. And yeah, links of that will be in the description. What I am going to focus on is my initial thoughts about this deal, and then moving on to some ideas of stocks or shares, whatever you want to call it. So starting off then, we have the X-Men. I mean, this is like my favorite team of all time, probably behind the Justice League, but if we keep it into the Marvel side of things in comic books, X-Men is probably the one thing that I grew up with as a kid. I watched the 90s show that aired even though I'm, not born in I was born in the 90s, so I didn't see it until the 2000s, but it was like the team that I grew up with. And X-Men is, I don't know how to say it, but they were cool. I always liked Scott Summers shooting lasers out of his eyes, and Wolverine with his claws, Jean Grey being the Phoenix, and then, the bald guy in the chair, Xavier, being this increasingly and immensely powerful mutant in his telepathic abilities, but then crippled and can't move. I always found that to be quite interesting, and I always related to him. And also Magneto, they had some of the coolest villains of all times with some of the coolest teams and team setups. And well, just like everybody else, or not everybody else of course, but just like many of you out there, I felt like Fox wasn't quite doing them justice. Now, I don't know if they didn't get their original costumes because there were some twists about what they actually bought from Marvel to begin with, because they did buy the movie rights to actually air these characters. But for some reason, they never appeared in their full costumes, which I thought was quite weird and quite of a hit and miss, so to say. Maybe they went for more of a, more realistic format, and that they were going to run around in blue and yellow spandex wasn't that, realistic. But I always thought that was a bit of a hit and miss, as I said, because I always want to see that. And then I want to see the interaction with the Avengers, since the MCU has gotten so big. So I am very happy that the X-Men might be getting back home again to Marvel, or to Disney, or whatever you're gonna say, because Marvel is a part of Disney now, as you all probably is aware of. Then moving on to Fantastic Four, which was probably one of the first superhero movies that I ever saw, and I thought they were great. They were awesome. I don't know why it didn't come a third movie. And then I rewatched them, now in modern day, and I realized I understand why it didn't come, why a third movie was never made. Why? Well, because, Galactus, you know what I mean. The big purple dude in space who eats planets and devours stuff. Well, for some reason, right, he is a big cloud in the Fox universe. I don't know if I could quite agree with that. I didn't like it. To be honest, to be blunt, just to put it straightforward. I didn't like that depiction of Galactus. Now, this is the same thing with the yellow and blue spandex from the X-Men. It's something that I think was a bit of a hit and miss. I don't think that they thought that the audience at that point in time would be, adapting or accepting to the idea that there was a big purple dude in space just going about devouring planets, and that's why maybe they went for the cloud thing. I don't quite know, don't quite understand, as I said, but the Fantastic Four is something that it's so cool. Reed Richards, the smart dude, and what I would love to see, right, is with the X-Men and the Fantastic Four, if they get reintroduced into Marvel, into the MCU, I would love to see the Illuminati, because Illuminati is probably my favorite set of characters of all time. It's just these immensely powerful and really smart and highly intelligent people who are getting together and forming this team of, super Avengers or super team. And it's Charles Xavier's, it's Reed Richards, it's Tony Stark's, it's Doctor Strange, Black Panther. I don't know if Black Panther is part of it or not. But then we also, but they're in Wakanda anyway. And then we have the guy who is, Black Bolt or Black Stream or whatever his name is from the Inhumans. I know it's Black Bolt, but still, that was a bit of a hit and miss, I would say, with the entire series putting on there. But yeah, the Fantastic Four, I would love to see them in the MCU. And yet again, I've been linking some, some videos in the description from some other channels who are doing a very good job with actually coming up with an idea of how they would be introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And then we're coming to Deadpool. Sorry, just gonna water my throat there for a bit. But Deadpool, probably everybody's favorite after the successful, really successful movie, the R-rated Deadpool movie, that really, in my opinion, kept to the core of what the character is. This, the witsy, the funny guy who is jumping around. He has this, he's extremely powerful. Could probably take out the entire MCU if he wanted to. Don't really care about life that much. Is this highly special trained, soldier guy before he gets the super soldier theorem, or it's not the super soldier theorem, but he gets a part of, or a fraction of what Wolverine had, a bit of his powers. So you can say that Wolverine is a bit of his dad in a way, right? But yeah, I thought that they really nailed that character, and that's something that I'm afraid of, that if Fox now give it back to Disney, and hence to Marvel and the MCU, will Deadpool be PG-13? Because I think that will take away a lot from his character. A lot of his character is this, not brutally, but this cheerful guy who's just going around and unalive people, according to the YouTube algorithm. I don't want to say the K word, so to say, but he's running around unaliving people, which I think fits his character rather well, and it's not something that I want to see being taken away. So I thought that they did a really good job with that, how he was going to be introduced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yet again, there are links in the description for that, but just my personal opinion, I wouldn't. I would have him as a standalone movie, maybe some interaction with Wolverine, like old man Logan. I would love to see Hugh Jackman in the MCU, even though he probably won't, because he said goodbye to the character. That was like the Logan movie. But yeah, I would love to see the interaction of Ryan Reynolds and Hugh Jackman on screen as Wolverine and Deadpool. That would be amazing. But I hope that they keep him separate, even if they do adapt him into the MCU. Another part of the series then, and movies, and getting on the same vein as all of that, is Gotham. Yeah, that's right. A DC movie property, if I would say so myself. It's all about Batman, Gotham, and the build-up to who Batman is, who all of the villains is, and who all the villains are, and who they are in the city, and what the city is actually like, where did it come from, where did all the villains come from, the origin stories of all the villains, and of Bruce Wayne himself. Now, this is quite interesting, because Fox owns, as I understood it, the distribution rights to Gotham, right, to this series, which means that if Disney buys Fox for $60 billion or whatever it's going to be, they will essentially have the distribution rights for a DC show, right? And this is quite interesting, because then they will have Marvel as their flagship, what they are benefiting from, and they could intentionally cripple Gotham as a DC property. I don't know if that's legal or not, but they could probably hinder some of the negotiation and be on purpose ineffective when it comes to dealing with Gotham in relation to some of the other Marvel series that they have under their belt at this point in time. Now, I would assume that there are some things in store that makes like a failsafe that when DC sold off this movie rights or this distribution right to Fox, that they said, well, you can sell them to whoever you want to unless Marvel gets their hands on them. There could be such a deal or something along those lines, but it's quite interesting to imagine that Gotham is in Disney's hand, and that it could be potentially, right, that Batman could be in the MCU. I don't think there's ever going to be such a thing, but just imagine if we don't have Black Bolt on the Illuminati, imagine having Batman on the Illuminati instead. It would be the most amazing thing ever, right? And it would be so cool. Now, realistically, this will not happen, but it would still be cool to see Marvel's take or Kevin Feige's take on Batman, since I would say that the Batman v Superman was a bit of a not a hit and miss. I think that Batman was the best part of that movie, but still, it would be interesting to see a Marvel take, or what should we say? Without stepping on anyone's toes here, but the Marvel quality of cinematic presentation of the characters applied to Batman. I think that would be very cool, because so far the Black Panther video, or the Black Panther movie that's coming out next year, the trailer of that so far is like my perception of kind of what Batman would have been in the MCU, which I think is quite cool. Then we're moving into the last part of series and movies, which I just heard about this in a drive-by, but Simpsons is owned by Fox, and I heard someone throwing around the idea and tossing around the idea, what about Simpsons in the MCU? And I was like, no. Batman is a bit of a stretch. He's a comic book character, so yeah, sure, include him if you want to. It's a bit weird. It's really weird, actually, because he's not in any of the original stories, because he's not owned by Marvel. But sure, I would pass, since I love Batman, sure. But Simpsons, I can't see it, right? I really hope that the person who said it was, stating it as a joke, but there was some form or some sort of realism and strict, what should we say, that really seemed sincere when they said it, and I can't for the love of me remember where it was, but yeah, just no, I wouldn't agree to that. Keep Simpsons outside. But now we're getting into what I really wanted to talk about, since this is such a good example that Disney and Fox, what should we say, this deal that they're going to make. So we're going to go into a bit of stocks and shares. Stocks and shares are just what they sound like. They are shares of a company. Duh. But I will explain it. People buy an amount of shares in a company, either it be 2 or 50,000, right? 2 or 50,000 stocks, 2 or 50,000 shares of a company, which then corresponds to them owning X percentage of the company, since each share corresponds to a certain percentage of ownership. Now, buying shares give you a vast array of options, or perks, if you will. You will be rewarded with dividends over the accounting year, and you will be invited to annual meetings where you can lay a vote on the certain decisions that the company will make now or in the future. Now, I think that this is going to play a big role in what I'm going to take up next when it comes to the Disney and Fox deals. So, however, even though a share represents a percentage of a company, the exact value of shares are constantly in flux. Now, what is meant by this? This is probably due to it being a total perceived value of a company changes with certain deals, decisions, and acquisitions of assets. Essentially, it changes with everything that the company does, or someone who is seen to be representing the company does. Hence, it is constantly in change. So it's constantly changing. The perceived value of the total value of the company is always changing. Hence, the change or the value of shares are constantly changing. Now, what does this have to do with Disney and Fox? Well, according to the information that I've gathered so far, Disney and Fox were negotiating about trading or selling Fox's movie rights off to Marvel characters back to Marvel, which now is owned by Disney yet again, before, but the deal fell through because of Fox backing out. However, just the mentioning of this deal increased the perceived value of their company due to, lots of money potentially coming in from the deal, to such an extent that Fox moved back into the negotiation with Disney, probably due to a push from their shareholders. Now, I thought that it was interesting to mention this now, since the perceived value of the company has pushed their market value, hence their share value, and therefore their decision making, without actually changing assets. And this is really important. This is a very good example of how the stock market works. Fox needs money to invest in its assets. Fox have assets that are highly sought after and therefore quite liquefiable. And therefore the potential value of the company increased without them actually, doing anything. It is just the perceived value of the company has increased due to them being in negotiations with Disney. Hence Marvel, hence a billion-dollar franchise, which is quite interesting to see how shares actually work. So mates, I hope that wasn't all too rambly. I hope you're not scared just because I didn't use my, conventional format that I have developed over the last couple of months. But yeah, this was my takes on the Disney and Fox deal, how Marvel is intertwined, and then yet again going into shares and stock value, what they are, why they are, and how they can change. And I think that this deal is a very, very good example of perceived value of shares and company stock and company value. So yeah, have a nice one, mate. And I'll see you, well, tomorrow in another video, since I'm having the daily upload if you're finding me for the first time. And please join in the comments what you think of the deal and how you perceive the share value and the value of the two different companies now that Fox potentially is selling off some of their, in my opinion, most, what you would say, some of their more strategic assets back to Marvel or to Disney. Have a nice one, mates, and see ya.